welcome to another Space Marine painting tutorial. Today we are painting the mighty sons of Nocturne, the Salamanders Space Marines, and I'm really excited to do this one because, well, it's a very cool green and it's actually quite simple to achieve. So, without wasting any further time, we've primed this model in Grey Seer because we want it to be a sort of quite a cold green that we're working with, and the colour that we are going to be using first is Warp Lightning. And what we want to do is, I'm using a medium layer brush to begin with. I do have a small layer brush on hand just in case I need it to get into any awkward spaces. But what we are going to do first is we are going to grab some Warp Lightning out of the pot on our medium layer brush, and we are just going to start painting this all over our Salamander's armour like this. What we want to do is we just want to take it very steady, getting a nice smooth coat all the way around, making sure that we're covering over the entire of the model. You want to finish your sections as you go rather than approach this haphazardly. Just want to take it very slowly in these nice smooth brush strokes. And go reasonably fast as well, which I know seems odd with go slowly but go fast, which doesn't make entirely a lot of sense, but you just want to move quickly once you start a section so that you can still move and edit the paint, as it were. Because if you take too much time, if you dilly-dally a little too much, the paint dries, and then when you end up with a kind of scratching blobby effect. You can see what I'm doing is I'm just taking it a panel at a time. Just making sure I'm mopping up any excess with my brush that I don't want to be there. There's a little bit too much of it there. Just going to keep that paint moving as I go. You always want to go back to the pot little and often. You don't want to overload your brush. If you start with too much paint on your brush, it gets a lot harder to try and clear it up. Now, one thing to point out is that we don't want to add this warp lining over his backpack or over the flat open areas of his shoulder pads. And so with that layer of Warp Lightning Green applied, you should have a Salamander Space Marine that looks somewhat like this. And now this isn't completely unreasonable, but is a little too pale. So what we're going to do is we're going to layer it up with another layer of Warp Lightning. But this time what we're going to do is we're going to add a 1-to-1 mix of Contrast Medium to Warp Lightning. And this is just so we get a little bit more extra control over this as we go. And what we're going to do is we're just, in much the same way as we've just done, we're just going to start painting this all over our model now. You can see there on the foot already that it's become much closer to that Salamander's green, which is really pale, but this is just to add some of that warmth in. Whereas if we go straight from the pot, it can get a little bit out of control. You can kind of either go a little too dark, or it just gets easy to make mistakes with it. So having that contrast medium in there definitely helps. So we just want to go all over like this, really building up that Warp Lightning colour. There you go. You can see the difference between the two legs already. And of course, if you really want to, you can build this up with a couple of layers. So you could do 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. It's entirely up to you. It's entirely how dark you want this to go. I might do 2. I'll let you know. In fact, I will do 2. I'll do 2 layers of contrast medium to Warp Lightning. So with that done, as you can see, we've got this awesome looking green. So what we're going to do now is we're going to focus on all the black details, which is quite a significant prominent part of the salamanders. So the colour that we're going to use first is Basilicanum Grey. What we want to do is we're going to take that on our brush and we want to start painting this all over all of the areas that we want to be black. So this is going to be areas like his backpack, his shoulder panels, the casing of his gun, and his belt, the soft joints of his armour, and any leather details that he has. Now don't worry if you've got a little bit of Warp Lightning on these areas already. As long as there's not too much, you can just go over it with this Basilicanum Grey, because after we've done the grey, we're going to be doing some black Templar. And then you really won't be able to see any of that green. So we don't have to worry too much about neatening it all up with grey Seer. However, if you want to, you absolutely can. I'm not going to, because, well, as I said, we don't need to. So you can see, just getting this Basilicanum Grey all over these details. There you go. See, I've got a bit of Warp Lightning on the backpack there. Now what we want to avoid on the shoulder pads, we want to avoid getting this grey on that Salamanders logo. And for anyone who says that it's back to front, I'm sorry, it is. It's because this shoulder pad came from a Deathwatch kill team kit. And traditionally it would go on that shoulder for the for the Deathwatch. So we're just getting this Basilicanum Grey all over. I'm not taking as much care as I did with the green, because this is a pre-shade. This is the the introduction to getting that black on. So we don't need it to be 100% smooth. However, it is a little bit dark. You can just use the brush whilst it's still wet. Make sure that you do this quite quickly if you spot it fast. Just use the brush to move it around. So I've got a little bit too much there. Just make sure that I've got it around that little area. I'm just going to make sure that we work it into that area just behind his head as well. Like that. Just a little bit just in here. Might as well colour that in as well. So there we go. So that's the backpack done. Similarly, I'm now going to start working on the shoulder pads. Getting this Basilicanum Grey all over. Just being really careful around all that green. And with that Basilicanum Grey all applied, what we now want to do is use some black Templar over the top. Like that. And with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some Retributor Armour. I'm going to use this to paint in the gold details. Now there's only a couple on this guy. We've got the little Aquila here on his bolt gun. And we've got the Aquila on his chest that we also need to do. Just a little bit of a tricky operation. So we go very carefully here. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some thinned down Iron Warriors. I'm going to use this for all the silver details. This is going to be areas like these remaining places on the bolt gun, the vents on his backpack, on his helmet, his bolt pistol handle. Like so. And next up, we're going to have a slice of tasty chocolate. And so with that done, what it's now time to do is to do some shading. And what we're going to do first is we're going to shade all of that silver. That kind of what we're going to use is, of course, Basilicanum Grey. Just work very carefully. Don't take too much at once. You don't want this to be overly dark. Just want to get a nice weathered gunmetal grey-esque type thing. I'm just saying words now. And with all that Basilicanum Grey applied, what we're now going to do is shade all that gold. And the colour that we're going to use for this is Fyreslayer Flesh. And so with those shades applied, there's only one colour left to do, and that is the shoulder pad. Now, the Salamanders indicate their company markings based on what colour the logo is, which is quite a unique way of doing it, and I like it a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to place him in the third company. Now this is an orange colour, so the colour that we're going to use for that is Gryph Hound Orange. So what we want to do is take some Gryph Hound Orange on our brush, and I am still using a small layer brush. I'm just going to very carefully paint this Gryph Hound Orange all over the top. Like so. Just mopping up any pools where I don't want them. And just being really careful not to blob Gryph Hound Orange all over that lovely black. And so, with that shoulder pad icon all painted in, it's now time to go right back to the beginning, and we're going to start that highlighting party. So we're going to go and highlight all the colours that we've painted in. Now there's not many, we've got black, green, gold, silver, and of course orange, which is, well, quite lovely for us, isn't it? So the colour that we're going to use first is Moot Green, and we're going to use this to highlight, you guessed it, all of the green. You saw that coming, eh? So what we want to do is we're just going to use this Moot Green very carefully to pick out all of the edges of his power armour, like I'm doing here. Like that. And so with that Moot Green applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to make a 1-to-1 mix of Moot Green and Dorn Yellow to make a nice pale yellowish green, but still in the same sort of colour palette as what we're working with. And we want to use this to just add a little tiny spot highlight on the sharpest corners of each of these armour panels, like so. Just to give it the impression of the light catching off those sharpest areas. Like that. And so just keeping with some Dorn Yellow, what we're going to do is just use a tiny amount of this on the tip of our brush. We want to use this to paint in a small line going across the middle of the eye lenses, like that. Now it might look a little bit stark right now, don't worry, we are going to darken it down in just a second. Like so. With that Dorn Yellow applied to the eyes, what we now want to do is we want to take some Iyanden Yellow. We want to paint this all over the top of those eyes, and we also want to fill out the rest of the eye lens. Like that, you see? And it's already just darkened it down and added a little bit of extra colour in there. It might take a couple of layers just until you're happy. Just keep going, keep adding it until you get the effect that you're after. I think I'm going to do 2. Give me a kind of darker yellow. With those eye lenses done, what we're now going to do is we're going to highlight all of the black using some Dawnstone. And with that Dawnstone applied, what we want to do is we want to use some Administratum Grey just on the absolute tips of all those black details, similar to the green armour. Just picking out the absolute corners and sharpest edges of all those black details, like so. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some Iron Hand Steel. I'm going to use this to highlight all of those silver details. And with that iron hand still applied, what we now want to do is we want to use some Liberator Gold to highlight those gold details. And with that gold applied, what we now want to do is we want to use some Fire Dragon Bright. We want to use this to highlight our Salamanders logo on the shoulder pad. And so with that logo highlighted, our Salamander Space Marine is now finished, ready for basing and any transfers you wish to apply. And of course, as always, I recommend that you base him in the same style as the rest of your army. And so our salamander is complete. That green is so lovely. The salamander scheme is one of those ones that's been notoriously difficult to achieve, because in old world you'd use a lot of Warpstone glow and a lot of Moot Green to get even close to this kind of pale lizard green, for lack of a better word, or emerald green, that would be a better word. But contrast paint, once again, showing just how easy it is to get the finish you've always dreamed of. Yeah, what a lot of fun to do. If you enjoyed this one and you'd like to support me further, like these legends on the screen, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. And if you'd like to stay up to date, make sure to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.